It's the talk of San Diego.
Well, hello, I'm Andrea, and this is the Talk of San Diego, and I'm here at the Bernardo Winery, where you can have some wine tasting, or maybe some glass blowing, as well as maybe the theater. And you can come on down and maybe try some wine. Hi, I'm Andrea, this is the Talk of San Diego, and we are here at Bernardo Winery, and I am here with Ross Rizzo. He is the president and winemaker of the Bernardo Winery. So I hear that this is the oldest continuously operating winery in Southern California.
Yeah, you got it. Actually, we're the oldest. We're one of the oldest operating wineries in California. Actually, we were founded in 1889 by 5 Sicilian partners, and they kind of came here in San Diego. A lot of people were making wine, kind of like in their basements at home. There was a huge Sicilian and Portuguese population in San Diego, and they were making kind of wine on like a private scale, you know. So these 5 partners thought, wow, San Diego's becoming a pretty big city. There's a lot of people that are going to drink wine. Why don't we build a winery? And why don't we build like the biggest winery that California has seen so far? And so they did, and it was thriving all the way up to Prohibition, obviously. So yeah, we're definitely one of the oldest.
Very interesting. So what kind of activities or events can people attend here?
We do a lot of cool stuff at the winery. We do a lot of things on tradition. So we have obviously a grape stomp every year.
Yeah.
We have a little Sunday party every Sunday for with live music on our patio. The grape stomp obviously has a huge tradition. Every September we crush grapes. We make wine. That's when grapes are ripe, and start the winemaking process, right? But the Sunday parties was more kind of like my grandfather's idea. Back when he took over the winery in 1927, he had all of his friends come up from Little Italy and Tijuana and actually have parties on Sunday. They'd come, they'd talk business, a little bit of business, a little bit of fun. They'd do a little bit of barbecuing and obviously drink the wine that was made here. So we kind of continue that tradition now with our Sunday live jazz. So
Keeping the tradition.
yeah, exactly.
And so how long does it take to smash up grapes?
So it takes 2 seconds to smash grapes, but it takes from 3 months to 2 years to make a bottle of wine. So wine is a really long process. It's kind of it's very intricate, and it takes a lot of patience. And so you know, I have no patience whatsoever. So making wine is tough. The patience part is really tough for me. Wine is like an art form, but there's a lot of science behind it. We get the grapes in September. They're ripe in September. It takes about a year for them to ripen. We pick them, we crush them, and everybody has seen that Lucy episode where she's jumping in a vat of grapes. That's basically the same thing we do now, but with equipment. We break the grapes apart. The yeast on the outside of grapes that grows naturally climbs inside with the sugar, and that creates alcohol. And then we obviously press all the skins away, and we just get juice. And then it has to mature in barrels or tanks, and then it's bottled, and then it has to age in bottles for a while, and then you release it. So it can be anywhere from 6 months to 3 years before we get a bottle of wine out of the grapes.
So you said that you have parties on Sunday, and what other types of activities do you have? Like I know that you have a theater as well, and maybe like pottery and glass blowing.
Yeah, this winery is really unique in that we have a lot of different village shops, village activities here. This winery was a village back 100 years ago. We had to supply our own equipment. We had a blacksmith here. We had a stable building. So throughout the last 100 years, they've kind of evolved into this. Our whole facility has evolved into this little village that people can come and check cool things out. We have a glass blowing studio here that is world renowned. James Stone is a phenomenally masterful glass blowing artist. He gives classes here. We have a clay studio that is basically like an association where you can join and you can make clay anything you want. They make some really cool stuff up there, pots and pitchers, things like that.
Fun.
We also have a 60-seat black box theater.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it is run by Mojolet, which is the modern jazz ballet group. They're phenomenally professional. They do a lot of great shows up in the theater. They also other troupes and other dance companies rent out the theater as well. So you get a lot of really cool events. And then of course, we have a restaurant and a coffee shop here as well. We get a lot of people coming in the morning. I just had coffee with the same crew that comes in every morning and does a crossword.
Yeah.
So, and then you can get lunch in a cafe. So there's a lot of really neat stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a beautiful little art gallery here. That they actually do art classes. You can learn oil painting, mosaics.
So did this all happen around the same time, where they kept adding different types of activities to do here, or like shops?
So it kind of all came together. Back in the day, they were using these buildings for things for the winery, making wine, making olive oil here as well. But basically, it's evolved. The more Poway and Rancho Bernardo kind of grew, the less acreage we had. So we actually sold off property. The winery was at some point 600 acres, and now we have 13 acres, so it's very small.
Yeah.
So in that time, we had more people come, more visitors come, more neighbors that kind of are much more local, and they came here as a destination at that point. Instead of us selling wine to them down in San Diego, they would come here, look at the beautiful gardens.
Very cool.
Yeah. So then it evolved into having smaller shops, and then we became more of a destination, more of a local destination. So.
Well, very interesting, and thanks for talking with us. And I'm Andrea, this is the Talk of San Diego. We'll take a short break and see you in a bit.
You're watching the Talk of San Diego. Remember, this is Breast Awareness Month. We here at the Talk of San Diego are doing our part to support this very important cause. And now back to our program.
Hi, we're back. I'm Andrea. This is the Talk of San Diego, and I am here with Ross Rizzo Jr., who is the president and winemaker of Bernardo Winery. So tell me what you do here.
Well, I guess you kind of covered it. I mean, I make wine, and I look like I'm the president. No, I'm the third generation owner of this winery. My grandfather purchased the winery in 1927. My father took over in 1964, and I took over in 2008. It's a long family tradition.
Yeah.
My grandfather's father actually ran a winery in Sicily, so it's a long heritage of winemakers and winery owners. I do make wine for the winery as well. I went to Davis for a wine credential to make wine, but I saw it when I was growing up. When you grow up in the wine industry, you really get a feel for it. You kind of see what's going on, all the mechanics of making wine and being around it, and even tasting the wine. We as Italian families, they always used to water down wine for us, right?
Yeah.
So you get kind of you get kind of it in your blood, early on.
So you grow grapes here, but of course, and so what other types of plants or foods do you grow here?
So, the whole wine culture is really deep in growing your own food and a lot of things on the property. So, wine, like I said, wine takes kind of a long time to make. So there's a little bit of downtime in the year. So one of the best other crops to grow with grapes is olives, and Bernardo Winery has a rich heritage in growing olives and making olive oil for the San Diego tuna canneries. So San Diego obviously had a huge fishing community. They were fishing tuna, and one of the biggest tuna canneries in the world, Bumblebee Tuna, right? We know that everywhere, right? Started in San Diego. They had a huge facility. We would provide them with the olive oil for their tuna canneries for a long time. It's about 40 years. We had almost 3,000 olive trees then. We have 400 now. We don't make olive oil anymore, but that's one of the major things. We do still grow olives. We cure olives, for us, for our personal use and for the tasting room as well. But we also grow a lot of other vegetables. We do a lot of organic farming here, a lot of more traditional farming. Our vineyards are grown more traditionally, so we don't use any pesticides or herbicides or fungicides, things like that. We grow them more traditionally. They didn't have that back then. They didn't have that 100 years ago here. So we try to kind of mimic how they grew grapes. One of the major things is we grow cover crop in the winter. Grapevines go dormant in the winter. They look like they're dead. They look like, they lose all their foliage. And so we prune them, make them look all nice, and then down the rows we plant cover crop. And one of the major things is fava beans, and they're these large sort of lima bean style. They're from the Middle East. Then they eventually made it to Italy and Sicily more specifically. They're great. They're we grow a lot of them. A lot of the old Italians down in Little Italy come and ask me for fava beans every year.
Yeah.
We grow a lot of other Italian food, crops like squash. We call them guguzis. They're these long, skinny squash. We grow pumpkins and watermelons, things like that. So a lot of things. We also have 40 avocado trees on the property.
Oh.
And I think it's just because I like avocados so much.
Yeah. So how is Bernardo different at night?
So we actually do a lot of private events here, and it's absolutely gorgeous here at night. All of our wedding clients and all of our private event guests always say that Bernardo Winery is like has a whole nother romantic side at night. Our restaurant is not open for dinner, but obviously our private event guests get to stay here after dark, which is a lot of fun for them.
So how are the cellars so vital to the maturing process for winemaking?
Well, I could explain it to you sitting here, but I think it's just so much easier if I just show you.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome.
And we'll take a short break. I'm Andrea, this is a Talk of San Diego, and we'll get to look around.
You're watching the Talk of San Diego, and as much as we'd love to be in a financial position to do so, we can no longer give out refunds to those of you feeling ripped off by taking the time to watch this program again. Our sincere apologies.
We're back. I'm Andrea, this is a Talk of San Diego, and Ross here is going to give us a little tour of the Bernardo Winery. And so where are we going to go?
Perfect. Let's go to our barrel room first.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go.
Come on.
So we're going to go to the barrel room. I hear it's haunted, right?
Yeah, of course. Every good winery has a haunted cellar.
It's white, but it's...
Ooh, scary. Do you smell that? It's the smell of vinegar, right?
It is, actually, yeah. Exactly. No, it is, really. We don't use this cellar anymore, but we definitely keep this place intact. This building's almost 100 years old now. It's all made of redwood, and you notice, like, too, it's colder in here, right?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay. So that's like a major attribute to a wine cellar. It's got to be cooler than outside, obviously, and it has to be actually cooler than most of the year round. So it's got to be cold to make sure that the wine matures properly.
Around what temperature would you say?
So wine cellars are supposed to stay at 55 degrees.
Oh.
But this is Southern California, and there's no air conditioning in here.
Yeah.
And back 100 years ago, they didn't have any air conditioning or any sort of refrigeration. So they tried to get it as cold as possible. And usually they could keep it around 65 or 70, which in the summer, as we know, because it can spend a few weeks at over 100 degrees here in San Diego.
For sure.
70 degrees is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're hard pressed to keep your house that cold even with air conditioning, right?
Uh-huh.
So they built this building into the cliff.
The cliff.
Mm-hmm. Into the hill. So
Okay.
basically, nowadays you can get machinery to dig a cave for you.
Yeah.
But back 100 years ago, you couldn't. So they actually hand dug this into the hill. And so at the back of this building, all the way in the back,
Can we walk and
yeah,
talk?
of course. At the back of this building is actually it's actually about 8 feet underground.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the main reasons why it stays so cool.
And do you go under 8 feet under often?
No, I don't. Probably don't. All of it is redwood. All these tanks were made by 2 French coopers, and coopers are obviously guys that make barrels.
Yeah.
They were actually flown out here 100 years ago to build these barrels. So they built the building first, and then they built these barrels inside of it. All this redwood came from Northern California and was trained down here, and then horse and buggied to here.
Oh.
Yeah, and all the wood in here was all hand cut too. There was no electricity.
That's amazing.
So they all had to cut it by hand as well. So it was a long process. We don't use these barrels to store wine anymore.
Oh, you don't?
No, we don't. We
Okay.
use stainless steel and oak now, obviously, just like most modern wineries do.
Yeah.
But redwood is good for a lot of things. First of all, there's not this many redwood barrels anywhere else in California, especially intact like these. The other thing about these redwood is they're great for fortified wines.
Okay.
And that's what we were for back then. So fortified wines are wines that are brandies added to them during fermentation. And all this volume in here was basically so that we could get a tremendous amount of wine together, and then you distill off the alcohol and catch it. It's the same way you make vodka or gin, anything like that. You boil off the alcohol, and then you catch all the alcohol, and then you add that to the next batch of wine.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's fortified wine. So like port
Okay.
and muscatel, stuff like that.
So does the redwood make the wine taste any different than, let's say, if you use the steel?
It actually doesn't so much. The only reason why they used to use redwood is because they could get big, long pieces like this. And it's basically like a genetic predecessor to stainless steel tanks. So stainless steel tanks, they don't impart any sort of flavor to the wine, but they're a great container, right? They're airtight and they're big and they can contain a lot of liquid. And that's the exact same reason why they built these redwood tanks back then, is that they basically can hold a lot of liquid together. They don't deteriorate, and they're pretty sturdy. They don't impart any sort of flavors to the wine, and they don't leak. So
Yeah. And so I hear this is haunted.
yeah, so let me show you the painting. This is a very famous painting here.
Famous painting.
So the story goes that this painting actually was never of a woman.
It wasn't?
No, it looks like a woman from here, but once you get up close to it, up level towards it, if you had a ladder and climbed up on top of it,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like a woman from up there.
Really?
It looks like a mountainscape, and that's, I guess, what it started with. Now, I don't remember it because I was too young, but the story goes that it is slowly transformed into a woman that used to come around here in like the 1910s, 1920s, before my family owned the winery. And she used to come around, and I guess she passed away at some point around the area and then stayed and finally showed up in this painting.
Oh, that's so creepy.
Yeah.
So it actually at one point looked like a landscaping?
It looked like a landscape, yeah. It looked like a mountainscape with trees, and so.
It totally looks, and like she's smiling even.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy.
So from the first time you've seen that picture, has it changed much?
Well, there's been some like deterioration, like stuff's fallen off, and it's kind of like it's gotten a little bit more obscure. It looks more like a woman now, I think, than it did before.
When you were younger, or?
Yeah, but I think it's deteriorated in the right spots, and it kind of like slowly comes out. So.
So creepy.
Like those paintings up there, they've been there for a long time. The painting all the way on the far left, I remember as being a little bit more of a landscape as well, but it's deteriorated somewhat.
We're gonna take a short break and get out of this haunted cellar, right? And I'm Andrea, this is Talk of San Diego. This is Ross, and we'll see you in a bit. I'm Andrea, and this is the Talk of San Diego, and I'm here with Ross, the president and winemaker of the Bernardo Winery. And as I can see, looking around, we have a vineyard here. So, are these red grapes, white grapes?
So these are all red grapes. We have only red grapes planted on the property. We do make whites here as well, but there's a big difference between the two. White grapes obviously are lighter in color, right? They're usually not white. They're more like a green, yellowish color. And the wine kind of comes out that color as well. Red grapes are dark skinned. They're more like a purple, almost like a blue even, like a dark blue purple. Basically the major difference is the colors in the skin. So if you go to the store and you like buy red grapes and you break it open, it's clear inside, right? Yeah. So that's the same with red and white grapes, wine grapes, as well as table grapes that you buy in the store. They're all the same. But the difference between the color in the wine comes from the color in the skins of the grapes. So when we ferment red wine, we leave all the liquid with the skins for a few days or a few weeks even. So if we want to get like a lot of color. White wine, we just basically press the whole bunches just to get the juice out, and then the juice doesn't stay with the skins for very long, if at all.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of like really denotes the color. And so you know like blush wines, right? Like rosés.
Yeah.
Rosés are wines made with red grapes, but in a white wine style. So we press them so the skins don't come in contact with the liquid for as long.
Okay.
And that's where like the pink comes. And the longer those skins with the liquid, the darker the color gets.
Okay. And so what is the difference between, let's say, there are different types of vineyards and they have different unique flavors, I guess, or tastes?
So basically, there's a couple things. We've heard this word terroir, right? Like all over the place. It's basically like all the inputs that a grapevine has to deal with in its lifetime. So that can be the soil characteristics, that can be the weather, that can be people running by, it could be anything. It could be the shade from trees, could be the guidance of trees that grow around it. So a lot of factors go into basically how these grapes are going to turn out into wine eventually, what kind of characteristics they're going to have. So one of the major things, obviously, is the different varietal. There are different kinds of grapes. Just like how there are different kinds of apples, it's the same thing as grapes. There's different kinds of grapes. Syrah, Sangiovese, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. There's all these different sort of varietals, different types, that all have these different types of characteristics. And the characteristics, a lot of people like a specific varietal because of those characteristics, right? So we have varietals that are really like better suited to grow in San Diego. San Diego has a much different climate than Napa does or Sonoma does, right? So San Diego is a little bit warmer, obviously. It's a little bit warmer.
Like today.
A little more arid, yeah, exactly. We have these nice breezes that come through. We basically want to grow grow grapes that are going to grow better in this climate. And most of the varietals come from southern Italy and Sicily, which happen to be where my family comes from. So it's all kind of ties together. It's a little bit, it's destiny, I don't know, no, probably not. But it's lucky that we get to do that. So we have here planted one of the oldest vineyards that we have on the property, Cabernet Franc and Syrah. And both of those varietals grow really well in San Diego.
Well, thank you very much. And we were speaking to Ross Rizzo Jr., president and winemaker of the Bernardo Winery. Oh, and what website can they go to if they're curious of knowing some more information?
The winery's website is awesome. We have a lot of information on there. It's bernardowinery.com. Pretty simple. It's all phonetic. We have all of our events and stuff up there. We have our wine list. We got a lot of information about the property itself. So we have a little map.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Ross. And I'm Andrea. This is the Talk of San Diego. And see you next time. Well, hello, I'm Andrea. This is the Talk of San Diego, and we had a lovely day at the Bernardo Winery, and I wanted to thank Ross for showing us around, and it is truly a wonderful and friendly place. We saw some huge redwood barrels full of wine, and we also saw some vineyards and everything like that, and we had a lovely lunch at the Cafe Merlot. Oh, and this place is freeway close, and stay tuned for Cooking with Vishnu. So catch us next time. I'm Andrea, and this is the Talk of San Diego.